Welcome once again to The Sage, and thank you for being with us. Today we continue a very, very important part of what we've been rolling out in the past few weeks. We had looked at the issue of young people's role, continued youth movement. We had looked at the issue of the important role of the family. We had looked at issues of media and art as nation-building tools. And today, we turn to the topic of religion.
Religion has played a very critical role, as everybody will admit, in the evolution of our country from the very beginning to this time. I mean, before we came on studio, I told you that if you go back and look 60 years ago, so by independence time in this country, 1960, you will say that more than 3/4 of schools were owned by missionary organizations. Those children in Akwa Ibom that are being sold out in slavery called money marriage. I don't know if you know about it. There used to be some culture, I hope it is dying now, that they call money marriage in Akwa Ibom, where children at very earliest age are given out in marriage because of the loan or the money that the parents got from the other family. So they give out their daughter very early.
As payment.
Religion, at least Christian religion that I know, and even Islamic religion, they have been working against it. That no, this is unacceptable. Religion is working against, right now, I mean, you are aware that at Lux Terra, we have projects that have been working against sexual and gender-based violence.
Yeah, because I was going to come to that. So, it's to ask you to share, religion is also about social justice.
This is what I am talking about.
So to share, the examples, which you have many, of the work you lead at Lux Terra,
before Lux
as
Terra,
examples of what religion can
Before
indeed.
coming to Lux Terra, you read in the introduction that I was Secretary General of the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria. So I was Secretary General of the Catholic Church, as it were. And while I was there, we had a think tank for social development to promote justice. In fact, we did some seminar work on Niger Delta and oil money and how it is being used. Long before the various agencies that are active there now, we were active. We did a lot of work in terms of gender justice. We had 5 thematic areas, including oil money and how it is being used. And that is how people like Bishop Kuka got involved in the Ogoni and the oil spillage and justice in that area. He eventually became the secretary of the national group put together to reconcile the people of Ogoni and the Nigerian government. Now, then we have the promotion of social justice and promoting democracy. In 2003, while I was Secretary General, the Catholic Church mobilized 30,000 election observers. That's a contribution to national development. At that time, there was no other agency that could mobilize as many. 2003 elections, 30,000 election observers were mobilized by the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria, supported by the German agency called Miserio in 2003. And since then, we have continued to be involved. In fact, Caritas Nigeria also mobilized the largest number of election observers one single agency, Caritas Nigeria, did. You are aware of Caritas Internationalis. Then there is Caritas in each nation, in each country. So Caritas Nigeria has been involved in supporting people who are desperately poor, IDPs, distressed people, all over. I mean, you are aware of what Caritas did during the Civil War.
Yes.
In Eastern Nigeria.
I was a beneficiary of
You were a beneficiary. And Caritas has continued. Caritas was chased away, by the way. Caritas was chased away by the Nigerian government on account of helping suffering people of Biafra in those days. However, Caritas came back. While I was Secretary General, Caritas came back to Nigeria, and we set up Caritas Nigeria and have continued the work that Caritas is known to do all over the world. Whether it is in Rwanda after the genocide, or in Sudan as is going on now, or in Nigeria, Caritas has been very active. So in the Catholic Secretariat, we have a major justice, development, and peace unit. And then there is Caritas unit. They are busy all over the country doing work, social development, common good work for the poorest of the poor. So putting up little bridges in some villages where their roads are bad and they cannot carry their farm product from one place to the other. Helping women who are desperately poor with small SMEs, small and medium, kind of industries, helping them to establish. So all this is happening, including the issue of what we do about gender equity.
Okay.
So we have a unit that is working on that. And like I told you, at Lux Terra, we are working with some agencies, along with Kuka Center and our Islamic partners, the Development Initiative of West Africa, DIWA. We produced a book, I don't know if you have seen the book before, resource material on ending sexual and gender-based violence. Resource material for religious leaders, both Christian and Muslim.
Okay.
We have produced that book. And then that resource material goes into the scriptures to demonstrate that anyone who oppresses a woman, a girl, and claims Christian justification is a liar. Because just take a look at the life of Jesus Christ, and there is no way you can oppress somebody and you use Christian justification. And that what they call controversial texts of scripture are being taken out of context. So we went through all that, and we have trained a number of religious leaders. And we continue to do that. It's an ongoing project. Lux Terra has also been involved in integrity project. Amidst the widespread corruption in this country, we have produced books on how Christianity and the Christian texts can be used to promote integrity and discourage corruption in Nigeria. Because we produce books for Islam and the challenge of corruption in Nigeria, Christianity and the challenge of corruption in Nigeria. We work very closely with our Islamic partners.
Yeah, I noticed that. You have a great deal of religious dialogue.
Yes, to show that you cannot claim to be a good Muslim and be corrupt, the kind of corruption we're seeing in Nigeria. Actually, you're a liar. You're not a good Muslim, because your Islamic texts show that if you're a good Muslim, you'll be a person of integrity. We show that you cannot be a good Christian and be as corrupt as we see in the public space in Nigeria, because our scriptures talk about holiness, talk about integrity, talk about uprightness and righteousness. So we go through the scriptures and we produce these books, and we disseminate these books, especially among religious leaders, both male and female and youth leaders, so that they can take to the grassroots and use it to teach people. Literally, I have said somewhere that that project is to literally blackmail our so-called highly religious population with their religiosity, use their religiosity to blackmail them, as it were, so that they can wake up to the fact that, no, religion does not in any way encourage corruption. Religion does
nor can they get away by pretending that it is separate from religion.
Oh no, that it cannot be separate from religion, but that Jesus Christ says, by their fruits you shall know them. It is by your fruits. What are those fruits? The fruit of integrity, of justice, the humility, that you are a leader in this country, for example, and that you have 3, 4, 5 SUVs, 8-cylinder SUVs. And then you are chasing the poor woman who is selling miserable wares on the road. You are chasing her into the gutter. Her wares are pouring away. And you call yourself a religious person? You cannot see the contradiction in your so-called religiosity and this behavior? The behavior by which leaders in Nigeria actually chase from the road their followers. I mean, this is very important for me, because I see the siren culture the siren culture of leaders going around with siren and the pilot vehicle culture of chasing people, I see it as a metaphor for the bad leadership in Nigeria. These are not leaders. These are what Jesus Christ calls thieves, rogues, and brigands. If the road is bad, it is the leaders that should ensure that there are good roads.
Yeah.
If there is traffic jam, it is the leaders that should ensure that the traffic is flowing and people can get to their places quickly. But when the leader now chases those same people out of the road so that he can pass and leave them in their mess. So the road is bad, you buy an 8-cylinder SUV with heavy-duty tires and so on. There's insecurity, you buy bulletproof cars. Now, that's not leadership.
And you go to your plush homes and you put on your generators.
You go to your plush homes and put on your generator, so you don't even know when there's NEPA and when there's no NEPA. Is that leadership? Is that not some form of enslavement of the people? Our leaders relate to us the way monarchs relate to their subjects. See the difference?
Yeah.
We are supposed to be citizens, along with our leaders, together citizens. And there are citizenship rights that we have and responsibilities. But the way our leaders often relate with us is as if we are subjects and they are rulers.
That's what they are.
So part of what the church does and what the churches are supposed to be doing is to be constantly educating the people sitting in the pew. Because among those in the pew are those in leadership positions and those who are at the end of this, this misrule. Those who are suffering the most, they are together sitting in the church. It is the responsibility of the religious leader to constantly show that this is not good leadership. If you are Christian, for example, this is not the example that was given to us by Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Who stooped down to wash the feet of his disciples. So, not long ago in our churches, in the Catholic Church, we read John chapter 10 about, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So we use that, and all religious groups are supposed to be using these to show that if you are not, to the extent that you are not like Jesus in your leadership conduct, to that extent, are you not a Christian? You're only claiming to be one.
Absolutely. I think that speaks for itself.
Yes, that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So it means that we claim to be religious, but to the extent that we depart from the path laid down for us by Jesus Christ, and we are just like Jesus Christ himself said it, that the rulers of this world make the authorities first and they lord it over the people. It is not supposed to be so among you. I mean, it was very clear.
He did say leaders should be servants.
He says, just as I, whom you call Lord, whom you call Master, how I have not come to be served, but to serve. You too are to go and follow my example. Then he stooped down and washed the feet of his disciples. So we have no excuse whatsoever, which is why what I see is that there is a shortfall. There's a bit of a failure in teaching. A lot of people read the Bible, but appear to just take what they like out of it. I was young and I am old. I have never seen the righteous man's son beg for bread. We know how to celebrate that one. My God is on my side. I have a very big God on my side, We like those ones.
But, we reject.
Yeah, but the ones that say, if you wish to come after me, carry your cross every day and follow me. You don't hear Nigerians quoting that very much. You don't hear Nigerians quoting the ones that call us to say, if you really to be my disciples, let the world know that you are my disciples by the way you love one another, by the way you forgive one another, by the way, like what the passage I quoted, Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to 46. As you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me, meaning the prisoner. What you do to the prisoner, what you do to the stranger, what you did to the homeless, the naked, the sick. I was sick, you came to visit me. That's a critical passage that Jesus is saying, what will qualify you for the kingdom is how you help the least of my brethren, the poorest, the handicapped, the marginalized woman or girl in the Nigerian society, that these are the things that will qualify you for the kingdom. So I think religious leaders need to do more, excuse me, to do more in this area of bringing out the social dimension of the gospel for the people. In 1996, I published one of my earlier books. It's called A Prophetic Church. And it's still one of the best books I wrote on how to use the scriptures and use Christian teaching to advance society. So if you ask, what are religious groups to do in terms of advancing society?
Which was going to be my next question to you.
And I would say, Christians, please, those of you who can take a look at A Prophetic Church. The way we say it is how the Christian church can live in a prophetic manner in whichever society it is. And what does it mean to be a prophet? Mm-hmm. Let's look at Prophet Amos. Let's look at Prophet Isaiah. Let's look at Prophet Jeremiah. They were a voice for justice. They were a voice for equity. They were a voice
fearless, for speaking wrong.
Truth to power, as they say. They spoke truth to power. And I would say that religious leaders particularly should be careful in a society that is so poorly governed. They should be careful about closeness to people in positions of power.
I like
because the people in the positions of power can easily use them against the people to stay in power. So religious leaders should always be careful. In fact, it is Cardinal Onaiyekan, John Onaiyekan, who said sometime in the past, that when there is an unholy marriage between church leaders and people in government, we know who is the husband. Meaning that when religious leaders are not being prophetic and they hobnob with people of political power, people with political power and economic power, what often happens is that those ones try to put them in their pocket, bribe them, make them their own mouthpiece, rather than being the mouthpiece of the people, rather than being the voice of the voiceless. By the way, while I was at the Catholic Secretariat, and I think they have had several editions of it, we produced a book that we call The Voice of the Voiceless, where we actually outlined the communique of the bishops since 1960. The various communiques and how major parts of the communique at each one of their meetings, they have 2 meetings a year, each one of their general meetings, how they have taken on issues that bother the nation, issues that affect the poor, how they have taken on these issues at each one of their meetings in the last 63 years. So the Catholic Church definitely has structures from top to bottom, from the National Bishops' Conference to the village, structures of justice and peace. Almost every parish in the country has a Justice and Peace Commission, or they're supposed to have. Every diocese definitely has a Justice and Peace Commission and a Director of Justice and Peace. And we work not only for Christians, not only for Catholics. Justice and Peace Commission in every diocese works for the poor, works for the marginalized, works for prisoners, and it doesn't matter their religion. That is the policy of the church. When Caritas works everywhere, you have Caritas working in Iraq, in Iran, in whatever, wherever they are allowed to come in and work, they will work with the resources that the church raises to help the poor. So this is the attitude that, this is the conduct that every church leader should have. And I'm saying every religious leader, meaning the Islamic groups do not exactly have all the kind of structures that I have outlined, but they too have certain structures to reach out to the public, to be involved in development. The partners we work with, Development Initiative of West Africa, they are doing a lot of things also. And when you ask what can religious groups do, our partners, for example, are working to moderate the what do you call it? The terrorist sentiment, the sentiments, the fundamentalist sentiments that leads to terrorism.
Yeah.
They use their religious resources. They use Islamic jurisprudence to moderate those views, to help people to recognize that these extremist views are not mainline Islam, and these are not mainline Islamic views. So they are constantly researching and bringing out papers to help the moderate Muslim know that, okay, this is the path that will lead to development, not the kind of thing that they are talking about. And the kind of thing that the fundamentalists are talking about is not the authentic view of Islam. Now, to what extent they are succeeding, I do not know, but they are making a lot of effort in that regard. Just as we are making a lot of effort. Some of the people we bring in at Luxtera, the people we bring at Luxtera, for example, there are Christians that is the first time they are sitting down with an Alhaji. We bring Christians who that's the first time they are sitting down with somebody with a hijab. And vice versa. We bring people with a hijab who this is the first time he's sitting down with a Christian pastor, eating together on the same table. And we bring them together for 3 days, for 1 week. And usually the story is always a very glorious one of friendship across the board.
Father, thank you so much. I just felt like leaving you to talk some more because a great deal of what you're saying has so much wisdom in it. And as I look back, you, even before waiting for the question, you had answered it in terms of the things as a religious leader yourself, but also one that collaborates across religion. The important things that religious leaders and religious people in general should do. The fact that they're supposed to be champions of social justice. They're supposed to be spreading the message of love for one another, and also love and empathy in recognition that things need to be equal. Bounty needs to be distributed equally. But also that religious leaders particularly must be courageous
advocates of justice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And be able to speak truth to power.
If I have 1 more minute, it is to just add that I admit, as a religious leader, I admit that there's a lot of abuse of religion in Nigeria. So one of the things we do is to help people, Nigerians, to see that do not look at religion or judge religion with those who are abusing the religion.
Okay.
Yeah, don't judge religion with those who are abusing religion. I mean, if you go through the history of religion in this country, why bringing me some pastor that is defrauding people as an example of Christian religious leadership? Why don't you bring me the example of that priest in the village who has been for the past 20 years in a village helping people, helping them to find potable water, helping them to get hospital, helping them to do this, and who is attending daily to their desperate need, taking pregnant women to the hospital for delivery. We have numerous such examples of religious leaders. Yeah. But what often happens, especially on social media, that feeds on scandals, is to bring maybe somebody, a religious leader that impregnates a child or whatever. Those are not examples. Those are not examples, the best examples of religious leaders. The best examples of religious leaders, and thousands of them, are people who are quietly doing their work in the remotest parts of this country for our national development.
I mean, I don't think we will have a better end than that.
Thank you very much.
The best examples of religious leaders are often silent.
Unknown.
Working daily, continuously for their congregation, for their parish, but across religious...
They are not on social media.
Yeah. Helping out, supporting, advising, counseling, giving spiritual hope and life. And there are many, thousands and thousands like that. And that in the end has to be set out, like we're saying it on this program, because too many times we tend to focus on the aberrant ones.
On the scandals, yes.
Yes. But so due recognition to that, but also saying that the fact, also admitting that given the many problems that exist in our country, particularly social problems,
they can do more.
Yes, a great deal more needs to be done. We need to intensify efforts. And as the rest of us within the country, within the populace, strive to do that, we will continue to look to our religious leaders to lead by example, so that we can follow you courageously in saying, in speaking out when things are not right, but also in applauding and highlighting the things that are good that is happening in our country.
Correct.
Father George Ehusani, thank you so much for coming on the stage.
Thank you for having me.
And for reaffirming for all of us that religion and religious leaders play a critical role in our national development. We need them. It is you and everything you represent across religions that give us hope, that teach us love of each other and one another. And therefore, you are the pillars that will, in the end, produce patriotism and love of country. So we thank you. We ask you to please continue the work as we all hope and pray and wait for the day that our country, Nigeria, will take its rightful place in history.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.